Welcome to the course Technology and Innovation Management. In this online lecture, we will talk about changes to traditional organizational capabilities because of digitalization as part of our course session on digital transformation of incumbent firms. Now, we will start by looking at some common misconceptions. With digital transformation, we mean a change of incumbent organizations enabled by digital technologies. That doesn't necessarily mean it is about the implementation of new technologies or the implementation of some cutting edge technologies. Rather, what we mean is here that we adopt new digitally enabled business processes and practices that help an existing organization compete effectively in an increasingly digital world. So, digital transformation is being portrayed in the media very often is the case of an organization choosing a new piece of technology and implementing it, such as when some companies starts using AI. But this part is only one part of the story, and it overlooks very important issues such as strategy, management strategies, talent management, staff management, organizational structure, leadership. And we've seen this with some of the issues in organizing strategies and growth strategies, so that companies not only have to implement a new piece of technology into their practice, but rather they have to think about some fundamental ways of managing their organizations quite differently. In this lecture, we will look at four concerns that in engaging in digital transformation that are competing with concerns that firms traditionally had. The first of these four competing concerns is what's called innovation capability. Now, here we must realize that most companies already have innovation capabilities, meaning that they already have people, processes, structures, schemas, and approaches for product design, process innovation, process redesign, these sorts of things. So this is what organizations have always had. The problem in digital transformation is that we require innovation capabilities, but very different ones. And they usually they conflict with those that we already have. So this creates tensions between employees who seek to bring about change and those whose capabilities have become core rigidities. Yeah. In other words, we have people whose job it may have been to do product design, to do innovation, to do change or transformation. But now all of a sudden, these people are rigidities and they can cause competency traps. So it's supposed to be their jobs, but they can't actually do what we want them to do. How do firms deal with this? Basically, firms have started to realize that whatever talent and capabilities they have in-house is not necessarily what they need during a digital transformation. If all of a sudden coordination is less about ownership, where process optimization is no longer about transaction costs, and where growth strategies are no longer about capital investment, but rather about user attraction. What do they do? Well, typically you will find that they try to get the new capabilities, usually provided by certain people that they're not members of the organizations yet, through a variety of different collaboration firms. So they're looking outside of their own firm because they know they don't have them internally. Yeah, and here's a way to think about this. So what a lot of incumbent large organizations are doing is they either build one-off agreements and contracts with people that bring new capabilities. Very often they come from research or innovation labs, yeah, such as universities, think tanks, consultancies, because these people usually are closer to the new capabilities that they require. So one of the ideas would be to say like that we have one-off agreements for particular near-term problems that we have. This model you can then call an extended workbench, or even bigger ecosystems where they partner off and have contracts, let's say, with a higher research institution like a university, with a particular company such as Accenture or a think tank or IDEO, to build an idea lab or innovation lab or design labs whose job it is to build new capabilities, new prototypes, new ideas, new solutions that the firm can then have access to. A second way to incorporate new innovation capabilities are more formalized, longer term institutional arrangements. For example, several large companies offer what you could conceive as in situ research, meaning they offer the possibilities for other people that are not part of the organization to do on site projects or sabbaticals, One example here in Hamburg would be Edeka Digital, who are very happy to have students, master students, to come in for 3 months, half a year. They get paid a little bit of money to work on certain on-site projects with them. If you're a researcher or if you already work with a tech development company, you are happy to go and do a sabbatical, like a secondment over there. So these are arrangements that they have with a number of players, such as the University of Hamburg, that allows people to come in and work on a near term, a current problem that they're having through people that bring capabilities that Edeka doesn't have in house. Other models would be a deep exploration pipeline. So, this is a bit of a more formalized model where usually companies have access or have very formalized access with quite a bit of investment into research institutions like big research centers to access their pipeline of discoveries. To give you one example, from the chemical industries, Bayer, BASF, Pfizer, all of them have multi-million, if not billion-dollar collaboration with the research institution in the chemical industries, so that they can access the pipeline of discoveries that new research and development teams are doing. Another example from Germany would be Fraunhofer Institute, who have basically access to a whole bunch of collaborating research institutions that develop new ideas and then have other partners who sponsor the Fraunhofer Institute who can then access these discoveries. And finally, a even bigger one would be a grand challenge type of arrangement where firms or consortia-owned firms together research institutions develop a research agenda that is yet to be defined. So these are things that we are working on over the next 5 to 10 years. Just one example, there is a consortium like this in the automotive industries where basically all the big German automotive industries players are taking part. Mercedes, BMW, Daimler, Volkswagen, plus a whole range of different research and development teams from universities and other types of institutions. And they jointly work on future topics, such as quantum computing, which is a good 10 years from having any commercial market value at this stage. This is how then companies try to bring in capabilities that they require that competes with capability they have available, but they no longer need. A second competing concern is the focus of the innovation itself. Is it about the product or is it about process? Now, traditionally speaking, these two things were quite separate. You would have a R&D team and they would look into product innovations or product design, testing suite or something like this, where some part of the employees would try to come up with better products that they could sell. Yeah, like think of an R&D department at Volkswagen that works on the next generation Golf. Quite separate from this, some firms would have process innovation capabilities, usually in the sense of a process management team, process owners, a project management office, or some other center within the organization that would look after redesigning and continually improving their processes. Now, here, this balance usually changes and it basically blurs. Yeah, with certain digital product innovation also come process innovations. Think about all of a sudden you're offering a mobile app that you didn't have before through the App Store to millions of customers and their mobile devices. And all of a sudden, this product innovation would then allow you to innovate process because now you would have all these one-on-one customer interactions and feedback and data from the interactions that your customers would have with you through the App Store and your little mobile app. All of a sudden, a lot of this is datafied, which you could use to improve a lot of your process, such as your customer relationship management, your sales, your distribution, your marketing, anything like this. So you see that the balance between product and process innovation can be quite shifted depending on where and how you leverage digital technologies. This dilemma creates challenges because you have resource distribution differences all of a sudden, like who's in charge, how do your product design team work with the process innovation team and vice versa. And it also could lead to conflicting time horizons and other competing concerns. Again, let me give you an example here. This is an example from that's called utilization. And utilization is an approach that focuses on idle assets in the ecosystem in a firm to try to figure out where do we have resources or products or other assets or things that allow us to have very successful but hidden practices. And then the question would be, how can we use some of these products or assets in better, different, or new ways that we can think about? Yeah, I'll give you one example here. Walmart has done this a couple of years ago. They started realizing that their Walmart stores, they're open, let's say, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., 12 hours, where people could come and shop, and they all have big parking lots. But conversely, it also means that for 12 hours a day, named from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. the next morning, the shop is closed and so is the parking lot, which means that in the middle of very high profile residential areas, you have prime real estate, namely parking locations, where people would literally pay money to get access to these parking locations, let's say to park their RVs or their trailers, because these types of vehicles usually are not even allowed to be parked within the city. So what they've done is they built a little app, which is an overnight parking at Walmart app, which would allow you to access the empty parking lot in front of a Walmart store with your RV, your trailer, your camper van, these types of vehicles, and book a night parking spot in locations where otherwise you wouldn't be allowed to park, and it would allow Walmart to utilize an asset that they already own and have to pay for more fully. Yeah, so you see, this is a bundling of product and process innovation that allows a new process, a new service to be installed based on innovating a product that was underutilized. And if you think about an analogy, you could think about the University of Hamburg and its lecture theaters that are being sometimes frequently used, but only during the semester. So 2 times 13 weeks for a couple of hours, usually between 10 and 4 p.m. on a day. So if you think about it, most of the time these lecture theaters are empty and they're unused, but they're obviously on the cost sheet of the university. So this idea here would be to think about what else might we be able to do with our lecture theaters, and could we build a digital process, for example, for renting out lecture theaters for people that, I don't know, want to get married in a lecture theater? You might be laughing, but actually, my own advisor did something like this many years ago when he got married. My doctoral advisor, he got married at his own university. I'm not recommending that. I'm just saying it could happen. A second example where we see organizations are doing this are not owned assets that we know we own, but rather hidden assets. Yeah, hidden assets could be students in the universities. A hidden asset could be all those people that are on your airplane that might have certain capabilities or other types of talents that other people would literally pay money for to get access to. Or it could be any skills and talents that taxi drivers might have. Here, the idea is to leverage assets that weren't even on our radar screen. Yeah, so, for example, taxi companies usually have the problem that their taxi drivers are paid 100% of the time, but 65% of the time they're idle, meaning that they're waiting, let's say, at the taxi queue at an airport or anywhere else, waiting to pick up someone. Very often, the individuals that are taxi drivers have a very diverse range of talents and capabilities. Many of them speak multiple different languages, some of them of all sorts of levels of education. So one company started utilizing the taxi drivers as a free on-demand translation service. Second example on the right is from an airplane. For a while, some airplanes started selling access to other passengers on the plane for a particular fee. So let's say you're on the plane with, I don't know, Elon Musk. You know he's on the plane. You know it's an 8 hour trip. He can't go anywhere. What would you pay to pitch your idea, your business idea perhaps, to Elon Musk and hope to get a little bit of funding? That's an example. It was tried for a while. I also have to say that it was stopped because not everyone reacted really well for being sold as an asset for a service fee. Now, this is an idea of what you could have called a product innovation, right? So it's a resource centric view utilization, and it leads usually also to implicated processes. A completely different idea would be what's called as design led innovation, yeah, which is artifact focused, yeah, so product service focused. And it starts by looking at the customer insights and empathizing with the customer journey, not the organization's business process. Now, a very brief example in the purpose of this lecture here would be this here. the screenshot that you can see, which looks like a co-working space, maybe a modern cafe, but is in fact a bank in Sweden called Bank. And Bank has become quite famous for being an example for design-led innovation because they redesigned their banking outlets to fit better to the work processes of those people that wanted to come in and do banking transactions. Yeah, so here one story would be that they had customers who usually came in during the lunch break from their regular work, and they had to spend their lunch break instead of relaxing and grabbing a bite to eat. They had to go to the bank to do a certain transaction, cash a check, file a transaction, God knows what else. Yeah. So they were usually disappointed because they had to give up their lunch break to do that. Yeah, give up their lunch break to go to the bank. So what the bank did said, well, how about we offer you resources that allow you to work from here, and when you have a little break in between, you can just quickly do your banking transaction while you're here. So they started offering coffee, co-working spaces, internet access, and these sorts of things, so that people can literally work at the bank, and whenever there's an opportune moment, they can complete their banking processes without having to give up their right for lunch breaks. Yeah, a second example, again from the same bank, would be that another person could be a busy parent with little kids. Again, they need to go to the bank to do certain banking transactions. No one wants to do this. We all have to do that, and we have to bring the kids along. How do we do that? So they decided to offer services, products and services that you can rent, such as a child's play, maybe a television screening, or even a tour of the bank, something to entertain your kids while you talk to your mortgage broker or your insurance specialist or whatever else you have to do at the bank. So here we see again digital products and services. Yeah, book an appointment for your kid, work from the bank, not from home, go hand in hand with product innovations. And if you're interested in this case of Bank, human-centered banking, was written by a design-led specialist called Kara Wrigley. And the idea here, what they did is literally they wanted to make the bank more like Starbucks. Yeah. So this was basically the idea that they wanted to pursue with design-led innovation. The third of the four competing concerns is innovation collaboration, internal versus external. Now we've learned so far that that firms must look at process and or product innovation quite differently. They usually have the problem that they require new capabilities that don't match the capabilities that they have existing. So that also means that firms must develop skills and relationships of people operating within internal work arrangements, whilst also engaging external partners and resources. What that does is that, of course, it changes the equilibrium of work. Yeah, every team inside the organization now also has to work with external partners. Of the other hand, of course, through the external partners, we're bringing new capabilities that we might need, and there's all sorts of opportunities for other types of value creation that we've may have overlooked so far. I'll give you an example here. The example here is of N26, which is a very famous case in Germany because it was basically Germany's first completely digital bank. Now, this is an interesting story because usually banks, especially in Europe, operate in a highly regulated sector with core old legacy banking technologies. Yeah, and firms such as Deutsche Bank, Commerzbank, and others, they've very publicly tried digital transformation without much success. So, for example, Deutsche Bank once invested $1 billion into their digital transformation to then only stop it because they realized it didn't go fast. So, what most of the banks have started doing, instead of trying to manage the digital transformation itself, build the capabilities that they need, attract the people that they want, they realize that they can't necessarily do it. Very few techie experts want to work for Sparkasse or Volksbank, put it that way. So instead, they changed their models to cooperate with so-called fintech businesses. Yeah. For example, here you can see here a company called FinLeap. FinLeap comes from Berlin. It's basically an incubator for fintech startups. So what FinLeap is doing is they're growing a whole number of different types of tech ventures, little startups that provide all sorts of banking and financial tech products. that they then connect with a lot of the German banking sectors that are very happily engaging with these external providers to build the solutions that they can't build in house. Yeah. So one example here is in fact N26. So what N26 initially was doing is they were building the digital bank technology, but they didn't have a banking license. Yeah, the banking license is very highly regulated. You can't just open a bank in Germany. Um, and they wanted to do everything online, which was a problem because by law, you can't actually open a bank account online. You have to be in person and give about 16 signatures on various pages of documents. So what N26 was doing, it was actually starting operation without being a proper bank, without holding a banking license. Instead, they teamed up with Wirecard. Now, this is also obviously a part of the story that you might look at in hindsight a little bit different because Wirecard was in the end involved in some sort of scandal. But the idea is still holds in that you would have a digital player teaming up with an established incumbent player until it basically breaks free. So, for example, in N26 did receive its banking license from BaFin, which is the regulatory body, and then it didn't need Wirecard anymore. So it sort of went off from this. And you see on the right hand side, Finley doesn't only have N26, they also have Solaris and a whole bunch of other types of tech players that are providing all sorts of services that are of interest to a variety of banking incumbent firms. The fourth and final concern in digital transformation for incumbent organizations is innovation governance and the issue between maintaining control or flexibility. So, with all these new capabilities that come from the outside, with cooperation agreements with external partners such as other firms, fintech firms say, now firms must develop managerial practices and systems that allow them to govern, but not necessarily control, these different parts that are important to their value chain. Yeah. So what that means is you have to find a way to recognize creativity and differentiation at the expense of the typical construct structures such as ownership, authority, and vertical integration that you would normally have. Yeah. So that means we have to strike a new balance between giving up some control in order to gain more flexible opportunities. Yeah, so we don't have to own anything. Maybe it's enough if we have access to some. We don't have to have a strict contract with suppliers. Maybe it's enough if we have a loose contract with them. Again, let me give you an example. And the example I brought here are from Starbucks and Lego because both of them are pursued very flexible, less controlled options for product innovation through what is called open innovation platforms. So mystarbucksidea.com or the Lego digital designer at lego.com, both of them are platforms that allow anyone, customers, suppliers, competitors, end users, to come up with their own product design ideas. Yeah, on the My Starbucks idea, you can submit your idea for different coffee drinks, for frappuccinos, for teas, for new processes, for new items you want to see in a Starbucks store. And of course, on the right hand side with Lego Digital Designers, you can build a Lego car, upload it, and hope that Lego would sell it as a product. Yeah, so some of the more famous examples of the Lego Digital Designers are, for example, the entire Minecraft series was customer built first until they started adopting it and selling it as a Lego product. Now, both of these are examples of what's called open innovation, yeah, or crowd-based innovation. The idea here is that you open up and you give up control over a key part, namely key product innovation or product design, um, in order to get more flexibility, in order to let the crowd give you ideas, more flexible, more varied, very different, out of the box types of ideas, of course, at the cost of control and ownership. So you don't own these ideas, you have to incentivize people to submit them to you. Either financially by giving people money or by a reward system, point system, gamification mechanism, whatever else. So the idea here is that you may get more from a more flexible product innovation process at the loss of control than having to employ 500 product designers yourself. So, in summary, digital transformation is a dynamic process that iterates between learning and doing. And we've seen here that we have a number of competing concerns without a clear answer about Which capabilities do you really need? Should you do product or process innovation? Is flexibility always better than control? Is collaboration more important than coordination? So what that means for organization is that they need to change their planning and management process to what are called agile approaches that allow companies to try something, see if they fail. If they fail, adapt and change, rather than having a deterministic and well thought out planning process. What it also means is that you need to envision, champion, and guide digital transformation efforts from top management, because these are the people that make decisions about where do we get the required capabilities from? Should we launch product or process innovation? Do we need strategic partnership with different types of players in our ecosystem? And should we give up control for the win of flexibility? These are strategic decisions, not operational decisions, so they need to come from top management. Of course, all of that means that work for all the people that are in the organization is quite changing. So, for example, maybe we have competencies that could become a competency trap. Maybe we're being told to work with a whole bunch of external partners. Maybe we have to let other people's ideas or solutions or problems come in and we have to work with them. All of that can be hindered, of course, by internal politics if we don't allow all the silos and all the structures, policies, and practices a room for these types of very different models. And finally, what should have become clear here, that digital transformation is not really about the IT itself. It's business oriented, customer centric, and involves the entire organization and involves a lot of strategic management decision. And the IT department is, of course, being essential, but it's not necessarily the one to take the leading role. That job is to literally look after the digitized aspects of it all. That could be the new app, that could be the new process, that could be the open innovation platform that someone has to develop, host, and maintain. Not necessarily the question whether or not you should give up flexibility and control. Now, this is the end of this lecture on competing concerns in digital transformation. Thank you for watching.